Okay, there we go. What are we speaking about today, Jeff?
I think we're going to talk about plans. I think we planned to talk about plans.
Okay, and what did we plan to speak about plans on?
I think about the fact that you have to have a plan, but you also have to accept that the plan is probably not going to go according to plan.
Why not? Doesn't that just mean you're very bad at executing the plan?
Sometimes. That's the weird thing about it. Right? Your plans are subject to forces totally outside of your control.
No, that's just woo-woo talk. There's nothing outside of my control.
Do we do anything that's not woo-woo talk?
I mean, yes.
Sometimes when we plan a dinner, that's not woo-woo.
I mean, when I get out of bed, I don't feel like that's woo-woo.
Do you make plans before you get out of bed?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Can you get out of bed without a plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope so. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten out of bed a lot. Sometimes when I have too many plans, it's actually even more challenging to get out of bed.
Yeah. When I have too many plans, I can't get out of bed, and when I have too few plans, I also can't get out of bed.
Yeah, I think a part of the woo-woo thing is in the sense of it's easy to discount both sides of it, because we were speaking about being nihilistic last night, and how you had done the optimistic side for the most part, and I had done the pessimistic side, and we both tried both sides. But the challenge I found with nihilism itself was that it was too concrete and concretized, with the sense of whatever you there's nothing else. There's no ideals. There's no. So why bother striving?
Why bother planning?
Yeah, and I feel like that's where it's a case of the woo element there is just psychologically the fact that things fall apart because there's too much. There's too much, and if none of it matters, what's the point of any of it? Even good or bad, what's the point?
But that's where optimistic nihilism comes in, because it's nothing matters, therefore what's the point? But also nothing matters, therefore we can do anything.
I don't know, for me, you're right, but I think the bigger thing is I never found that optimistic nihilism led me to wanting to create greater levels of intelligence.
No, and also just
intricacies.
Yeah.
Because it didn't seem like the meaning that would normally motivate me was sufficient for it to be done.
Yeah.
For
also,
me.
It invites one to have zero ethics, because if nothing matters and no one's watching and there's no destiny, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Although I don't think I was particularly unethical during that time, but definitely less thoughtful about it than I am now.
I think it does definitely, because I know we've also had chats where it's what's the point of not getting all up involved with everything that you can? And for me, that's where higher forms of ethics come in, because it's not to not get involved, it's more just to hold yourself to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And that's where it's challenging in the sense of compelling yourself to be better than what you maybe want to be, because the divide that's created otherwise is basically the divide between being able to show up for more of what is possible.
Yeah. How could you not? I suppose I understood this when I did practice optimistic nihilism or any kind of nihilism, but now I don't really understand how I could not constantly strive to align with my highest self, with ethical behavior.
But I think that because optimistic nihilism, one of the pluses that it gives you is that it doesn't matter if you don't.
Yeah.
And the lack of consequence to that means well,
I might as well.
Yeah, because I just, even when I find when I record myself playing or moving or doing anything like that, one of the main reasons I don't normally do it and look at it is because I look at how much more life I could still allow through me. How much more just alive I could allow myself to be.
I think that is one of the hardest things with actually recording any kind of content, because you watch it and your lens goes, I could have done this better. You automatically go to a place where you're I could have done more, or I could have done it differently, I could have, and that's not a bad thing, because we should plan to become better. But I think it has to be balanced with a sense of I did what I could at the time with what I had.
I think so, but I think the first thing that like I notice in being on camera or things like that is that I start to realize how, like, because I actually start to check in.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, like, even just forgetting to meditate every day. You know, a super simple thing that we all know is so beneficial, like in the smallest amount, because it's that check-in. And it's just that thing of like, okay, well, where am I? What's limiting the amount of life that's here right now?
Yeah, and yeah, probably not meditating every day is limiting it. But it also doesn't have to be an hour-long seated meditation. You can meditate while walking.
I mean, but even just meditation, it's really just about check-in.
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing I find is like, because I was like on that idea of plan, is it's like, because I like to do things in multiple different perspectives. And even just writing it out today was this thing of like, it's not, because it's easy to think, oh my god, I need to have this like poem or this thing I'm reading, and then I'll need to plan out the different, like modalized expression of it. And it's like, no, that one expression and taking in automatically and intrinsically has another expression.
Yeah.
It's about being able to hold it for long enough and just create it or recognize it in order for it to still be as it is. And it's that same sort of thing with like checking in on yourself. And I still remember like last year, May-ish, chatting with someone and having that same thing of like, you're right, you don't have to meditate for an hour long sitting, or you can do it meditating. But like the truth of it is that the check-in that meditation helps you get, it's never about the amount of time or the action of it. It's about connection.
And the amount of surrender.
Yes.
Because if you go through the motions it's very easy to go through the motions of meditation without actual surrender.
And I think, that's like probably one of the best ways that you can plan to, like, you need to have a plan to sit down and meditate or to connect and meditate. I mean, I do fully believe that, like, a sitting down, like, less is more sort of situation where you're removing stimulus and things like that is like key, because we have such overstimulating lives and things like that. But without the overt hold on how long and what it looks like.
I think there's also an element of like being realistic with your capacity on that day though, because you have to check in, and maybe today I need a moving meditation because I'm not capable of sitting still on this day. Because that's the kind of neurospicy I have, and sometimes sitting still is so challenging that it is never going to let me connect and surrender, and I have to find a way of moving my body into that space and having slightly more stimulation, whereas on another day I'm craving stillness, quiet, dark, all these things, sensory deprivation, you know, and not to say you should always cave into your craving, but your cravings are revealing your heart's desire.
And I think it's also one of those things to look at, because what you're speaking about there is like, don't burn yourself out trying to hold yourself to a perfect standard.
Yeah.
But like, have that, but also have it that like at the very least you're going to in some way meditate, even if it's just for a single breath, even if it's half a breath. Like, like carve that out, because the consistency. I mean, I read a wonderful book which I actually want to get a hold of again, The Compound Effect. And it's one of those ones where it just really nails down how what you do is going to compound an effect.
Yeah.
So your consistency compounds to such an exponential rate that like the smallest thing of choosing to bring yourself back to practice, because that's the practice. The practice isn't doing the thing, it's bringing yourself back to practice.
I think like we all have things we have to do every day, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, it's milking a goat. Right? I have to do that every day. If I'm at home, I have to milk the goat. It takes all of 10 minutes. And if I form that into a meditation, I mean, that is such a meditative activity. Like, I don't understand how you could do it in any other state. Then that, it just checks the box, and then anything, it's like, oh, I've done the bare minimum. And anything above that is just so good, so amazing. But at least I have that one activity that is a meditation. I have the walk, I have the sit, I have the connection to like a warm animal body who's also in like a sort of state of total calm and bliss, and the routine of it, the ritual of it, it kind of just ticks all the boxes. I think if you can find something like that in your life, That's very helpful.
I think it's also just about being willing to create all the things into your life to be a part of that.
Ideally, yeah.
Because for me, like what really pings in my mind is like the playfulness of savoring the walk, savoring the sitting down, savoring all of these things, and savoring in the sense of like tasting it.
Yeah, tasting it and tasting the slightly different flavor every day. Like,
and the opportunity within it,
yeah,
and how you can work that into your frame. Because the most important meditation is to be where you are.
Exactly.
And in that sense, like, but not just in where you are, in the mundanity of it, but in the like sacredness and the profanity and all of these different lenses that live in that moment with you. And you can't plan those.
No.
You know,
but
they just appear.
You can plan to
meet them.
You can plan to plan. You can plan to have space for them.
Yeah.
And I think there's two streams of planning here at work, which is we can maybe call one our self-improvement plan. So what are we doing to become better, or to become? What are we doing to become? And to be in our becoming. And then there's plans to actually take action. What are we doing to further our goals in terms of getting the lifestyle we want, making the money we need? You know, those are two separate streams of plan. But in making both of those kinds of plans, what really comes back to me is, I don't know if you remember, I think you were there, at Bern, the guy we spoke to who was an author. Anyway, and I asked him about his planning process for writing a book.
Oh, I do remember,
at O2. And it was because, for me, it's really hard because writing should always be channeling, which means you open a channel and whatever comes out, right? That's unplanned. But then there are aspects of actually writing a full book which require planning. So my question to him was, how do you marry the two? How do you marry the plan and the structure to the channel and the allowance of whatever comes out to come out? And he said, you know, it's discipline and channeling. Like you plan your structure in one beat. So you plan your chapter. In this chapter, much the same way as we plan these talks, I guess. In this chapter, I'm talking about this topic. And then, so you create a frame, and then you write into that frame freely. And maybe it branches off, and maybe it becomes about something totally different. And then there's another process after that, which is editing, which is taking the unplanned utterance, laying it up against the plan and trying to kind of make it fit in there. And maybe we could live our lives a bit like that.
So you have what you're wanting to happen, but then I suppose...
And then what happens?
Well, I suppose the bigger question then though is like, I guess you don't need either of them as a starting point, but both of them are their own starting point. Because I think the biggest thing is to... Like one of the things that I was realizing with the whole like multimodal perspective, looking at things in different ways, is you can use that as an inspiration point to create a plan to then try and fill the plan, but you're going to have to then recheck itself, as you say, edit it, and then see what's... Because I think the biggest thing with the channeled works of what I experience writing is that so much of what comes out is literally just for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just verbal diarrhea, or like just, you know, words on a page in so many ways that I can just get it. And then the editing process will remove. Like the one piece I did finish where I was like, I'm going to write this start to finish, I'm going to finish this thing. And I finished it like 3 days before the deadline I'd set for myself. Much, much quicker than I thought I would. But what I ended up doing in like revising it was I turned it into poems.
Yeah.
It all became poems.
Paring out the unnecessary.
Yeah, because so much of it was already like present within myself that I could just turn it into poetry instead.
I think that thing of writing for self and writing for others, they're completely different modes. Because writing for others, there is that pairing you have to do, but there's also a lot more contextualizing you have to do. Because if it's for yourself, you already know the context because you're living it. And then editing that into something that another will be able to grasp the essence of it, you've got to...
translate.
You've got to translate, you've got to contextualize, you've got to add a bit more fleshing out. Or you turn it into a poem, in which case the interpretation of a poem depends on the reader's context
yeah.
more than the writer's,
Yeah.
because they're going to interpret it in their own way.
Yeah.
So again, you have to have that plan of, that intention of, do I want to try as best I can to explain myself in my context, or do I want to just leave it absolutely open to the interpretation of another?